Excuse me.
That's mute.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Jan.
Hi.
Tell me you can't get on.
How do I get my picture on there?
Look over on the left-hand side, and there should be like a video camera, and it should be able to tell you that you can go ahead and get on. And are you there?
Yeah.
Nope, not yet. Okay. Bottom left-hand corner.
Okay.
Click it.
Hey, Mike.
There.
There you are. Super.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to start off with the Rotary Trail Walking Plan. Jacob.
How are you guys?
Good.
So we've got quite a bit of progress made on our plans for the trail at this point. The walking trail, I don't know how familiar everyone is with the project, but we reached out, oh gosh, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, multiple times, just inquiring what we can do as a future project through Rotary. We didn't have a ton of feedback, but this kind of came across our radar. And when we looked into it, we found out that the idea of walking trails or a trail system in Blissfield has been something that the village has had interest in, or the citizens of Blissfield have, at least through polling and things like that, the village believes that they have interest in it for 20 to 30 years, but there's just never been any actionable steps that have actually started the construction or the process of getting a trail system put in. So as a Rotary Club, we try to do these things, especially within Blissfield. We do all sorts of things internationally and everything, but Blissfield is obviously our main focus for where we want to have our efforts. And when this came along, we thought we could certainly help. So last year we kind of missed our window for grant writing for it. But this year, I think we're on track to get the grant request in, or the application in, on time. So the trail that I'm speaking of, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the actual trail plans itself, but it is down in Ellis Park. And then I believe it's Bachmeyer that's across the river there. I know there's a Bachmeyer over here too, over by Sugar Street, but either side of the river, the park system down there. And it's about 6,000 linear feet of a trail. So just over a mile, 10-foot wide paved path. So it kind of winds down through. It makes most of the features of the park much more ADA accessible, and just a nice way to highlight our park system, to bring people down to that park, make our dog park ADA accessible as well, and just a number of things that we feel like it will benefit the community as a whole. And I believe I was told that I think that Lisa can help me remote into my computer or something. So because I have the PDF of the site plan itself on my computer here. So my computer's telling me I'm the host now. Can you guys,
Yeah.
can you see my screen then?
I can't right now, but if I make you a host, it's supposed to be able to let you share your screen.
Oh man, now you're asking me. Oh, I see, share screen. I'm gonna click it. Oh, okay. let's see. I'm just going to click share again. Okay, so can you guys see my screen here then? It says I am screen sharing, so.
Yep, I can see your background.
I say,
Okay.
can you, Jake, you should be able to see whatever you see on your screen is what we see. So if you have your background and how do you want to open this file?
Yep, I
That's
do.
exactly what we see. Mhm.
Hopefully I can actually open this file. We'll see. I guess I'm going to try to use, yeah, I'll use Microsoft Edge, I guess. That's what it wants me to do. So we'll give her a shot. I'm not the most computer savvy. Okay, yeah, so, okay. Now, so this is the rendering that was done by, I believe, yeah, the Pogemeyer Design Group. So you can see where my cursor is here is the park entrance over by would be the east side of the park, okay? Because your dog park is right here, and then you've got the drive that comes down right here from Pearl Street. So what the proposed route is, and I think this is going to change just a little bit, not much, but one of the routes is going to connect that Pearl Street, or that parking lot off Pearl Street, all the way across to the walk bridge, and then over to the parking lot across the other side of the park. Okay, so you'd have a nice, like I said, ADA accessible route across the park there, and then also provide more of a safe path to school for children from the other side of the river, those that choose to walk or bike to school. So instead of going all the way across, let's take you down here. So this part, I believe, is part that would change right here by the dog park, because the entrance to the dog park is actually on the other side. And I've heard in conversations on meetings with Brent and Darwin that they've seen, well, Brent specifically has seen people that drive down and they park down in the grass here because they may not be the most mobile, or perhaps they have disabilities to let their dogs in this park. They can't get down there because it's just in the grass. So they have to do what they have to do. So I think what we would do is we would amend this and make this come around that side of the dog park. That way they could use a motorized chair or wheelchair or whatever they may have to get down there and actually have access to the gated side of the dog park. And then as we come down here, we go down behind Rotary Field. So it's to kind of just highlight a little bit of the natural beauty of the river and the park system there. A little more of the secluded section back here, and then come back down along the riverbank and reconnect to the bridge here. I believe the thought process would be we would just utilize the existing asphalt and driveway here for a walk path. So we wouldn't necessarily need to do anything in this section of the park. But up here you've got, that's where the footbridge is currently, the large footbridge over by 223. So from that entrance on the other side of the footbridge, so the west side of the river at that point, we would start and we would have the trail begin on that side. And then the original drawing here shows it going down between Rotary Pavilion and the riverbank. I don't think that's feasible, talking to Brent. So I think we would have to amend this layout just a bit. And I think what we would do is we would bring this single leg of the trail kind of further down and have it split possibly after the pavilion. So it would give you good ADA accessible access to the pavilion itself, and then split over by the playground here, and then down by the river. And then you would wrap past the actual footbridge there, or the entrance to the walk bridge, the Kiwanis, I believe it's the Kiwanis Bridge, and wrap down and around to the the woods, or the secluded area back there by the woods, and back up the west side of the park system there. So the total cost of the trail as is, at least as of a year and a half ago, Pogmeyer estimated this to be $238,000. So the Rotary Club has pledged a donation of $70,000 to this project. The grant that we are applying for is a Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant. It requires a 25% match. So with Rotary funding, and it being the 20, that would get us to the 25% match for a $280,000 project. So the grant that we're applying for would essentially be $210,000. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room. We'll have engineering costs, things of that nature. Those are all mostly reimbursable once the grant is written. So I don't know how familiar anybody is with natural resources grants. I wasn't till I got into this. So I've never wrote a grant, but I'm learning. It's a ton of fun. Grant writing is awesome. So what they'll do is they will take our application, and they'll take the information from that application, and then they'll come back to us, and they might request more information. The application itself is due April 1st to them. So they would go through it, figure out some questions. There'll be some back and forth for a couple of months, requesting further documents, things like that. Whatever they do request. I've heard from some people that they'll typically kind of help walk you through the steps at that point and say, okay, you need this, or you need this, or maybe you omitted something, and try to help you out there. And then once everything is decided upon and they say, okay, if they want to help us fund our project and they grant us the 210,000, then they will send us a contract. And that's when we would decide. It's my understanding that's when that would be presented to council for you guys to make a final decision on at that point. The fact that we apply for this grant and it gets accepted is by no means a legally binding contract with the village to take this money from them and install this trail. That doesn't happen until that contract is presented to us. And at that point, that's when we make, or you make the final decision on if this is something that you want to pursue. I think that's pretty current information. Does anybody have any questions on the site plan while I have it up? Any suggestions, questions, anything like that? Because I have the estimate from Pogmeyer too, but like I said, it's $238,000. It breaks it down. It's got what kind of substrate they'll use, like a 4-inch base, 4 inches of asphalt. It's pretty boring stuff. It's just numbers, so, but like I said, there is some wiggle room in that price too. So if we want to include some other things in the trail, I think we have a little bit of extra funding, like for some benches and things like that. And I know as a Rotary Club, we have to install some benches ourselves based on sponsorships from our previous auctions, because at the platinum level, A&B Railroad is going to have some benches out there with their logo on it that we will fund for them. So hopefully, I think it's something the village could use. It's a mile, like I said, over a mile. So people could go down, they could jog around it 2 or 3 times and get a nice run in and a nice, safe, controlled environment. I think it provides kids with a nice, safe path to school. And I think one of the things that I think it would really benefit, I think it'll really help enhance the River Raisin Festival itself. Because when you go down there now, I've only been in Blissfield for about 5 years, so I'm not like a lifelong River Raisin attendee or anything. But to me, when I walk in this side of the River Raisin Festival on the west side of the river, it looks just like a bunch of vendors are set up in the dirt, which is no fault of anybody's planning. They're fantastic people that plan it. I mean, I know that's a huge event, but I just feel like if this actually were to be installed and you could have vendors set up along this trail and have like a purposeful path that is free of debris and free of dirt and all that for that festival, I think that that would just be a fantastic addition to that as well. So.
Hey, Jake, I do have one question, and it was asked a while ago when the plans were brought to council, and is down in that corner, you know, yeah, keep going. It's in the southern corner back there. Yes, that seemed to be an issue perhaps for DPW getting around that particular angle. Right where your cursor is now. I didn't know if you had talked with Brent about that. I'm assuming that the idea would be to removal of snow, and I didn't know if you had talked with him about that. I just remember that being something that was discussed previously.
Yeah, we've talked to him about it. I don't know about that specific point for it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's not anything necessarily in the grant paperwork that says we have to keep the whole trail plowed all winter.
Okay.
Obviously, I think if, you know, as a village resident, if they're using it though, then they probably realistically could want that, but it will be a 10-foot wide trail. So, and with the substrate that they're putting under it and the 4 inches of asphalt, they can certainly drive their truck on it to plow.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I would think if they can't make their truck around that corner, then that would be something that they could go down there, and if they had to clear just that corner with the tractor, then that could be something that could be done. But Brent obviously would know more about that than me. I know he did talk about if at the least, currently they plow this section from the parking lot off Monroe all the way to the parking lot on Pearl for the kids that do walk to school, even though there is no actual trail there right now. They do keep that plowed. So at the very least, we could continue to do that.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. All right.
Yeah, but to your exact question, I don't know about that turn. Like I said, I mean, possibly with a truck, you could go down there, pull forward and back blade it out, and then go from the other way and back blade it as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jacob, I have one question for you. Have you looked into possible annual upkeep costs to the village on this?
We have. I asked Brent about that, and I believe he reached out to some neighboring communities or people that he is, you know, in the know, I guess, with DPW guys. I don't know. I don't know what they do. I don't know if it's like a secret society, but they all get together maybe. And he estimated the yearly upkeep to be around $1,600, and that's with plowing the whole thing, I believe. So plowing, cleaning debris when there is potential, you know, things that get caught, if the flood waters that recede kind of get hooked on things or stuff gets laid on the path. But he estimated $1,600 per year for the maintenance.
Okay. Brent, are you on with us tonight? I don't know if Brent's on. I guess my question was more pointed toward how often are we going to have to seal coat this, and what is that going to cost us?
So he said that you wouldn't seal coat it because the asphalt they're using is like a road grade asphalt. So it's not something that gets seal coated. He said what you would do. So that $1,600 did include crack fill, because they will have to do crack fill. And at some point, maybe, you know, 15, 20 years down the road or whatever, they could potentially have to take like an inch off the top and redo the asphalt like a road. But and I don't know how much that $1,600 factors that in the long term. So, but I mean, I've seen these trails. They have them in Jackson and Tecumseh and stuff, and I don't. The one in Jackson has got to be close to maybe 20, 25 years old, and I don't believe that they've redone the surface on that in the life of it, because it's not. I mean, it's not getting beat up like the road, and as long as I don't know what Brent's plans are, but I was talking to him, and I think that if you don't salt it during the winter, that will help increase the longevity of it too. You just plow it, and then kind of you walk on it, and you don't use that salt, because that salt really beats up surfaces. So
Right. Did Pogemeyer say anything about the fact that it's in the floodplain?
they didn't. I didn't have specific talks with Pogemeyer. That was done through the surveying group, which was I forget Ray Jones's survey company or whatever it is, but they're the ones who talked to Pogemeyer and laid out the stakes and all that. But they didn't. I mean, I think with the substrate and everything, though, the roads down there are fine when the flood comes and goes, and it wouldn't really be any different than the roads themselves at that point.
Thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions.
No problem, Jerry.
Hey, Jake, I have one more question for you, if I may. What about trash receptacles? I ask simply because of people who take those pads, and I know that going back to where the baseball field is in that corner we were discussing, that obviously that's personal, private property there. And I was just curious if that if there's any thought with the receptacles, some based around the trail.
Right. Well, we really haven't got that far yet.
Okay.
With the grant writing and all that, basically we've got a site plan, we've got a rough estimate. We've got, letters of community support and things like that at this point. But those are things that we can fine tune as we get closer. I would anticipate there being trash receptacles. And I think that would fall into that. Like I said, the estimate was about 238,000.
Right.
The grant itself would be 280,000.
And that would be that extra.
Yeah, we would have some some wiggle room with some extra funding there to install trash receptacles, benches, and things of that nature.
Okay.
So
I just was just kind of going there with, I know the residential properties are there, so I didn't.
Right.
Was curious. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Jake, do you need anything from the village, like resolution or any kind of support paperwork?
At this time, I mean, I don't. I mean, any letter, if anybody wants to write a letter of support, paragraph or two, that's helpful. There's a section we can upload that. It is in the village's 5-year plan, or the Parks and Rec's 5-year plan that was already approved by council. So, I mean, essentially, I don't know how many times they want us to say that the village supports it, and how many different ways.
Right.
But I do have a decent amount of letters of support from the community. But I mean, I would certainly, if anybody wants to email me some or drop it by the clinic or whatever, then we would accept any letter of support that we can get. It won't hurt.
And Your Honor, just as a note on this, the final grant application will be coming back to the council at your March 22nd meeting for approval before it's submitted to the state. So if the council decides that you want to adopt a resolution of support, we can handle it at that meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Great, Jacob, thanks.
Okay. You guys ready for me to stop sharing? I think I can figure it out here. There we go.
All right.
Okay. Any more questions on anything with where it's at? Like Darwin said, we'll be done with it March 19th. That way you guys can get it on the 22nd and we can have it turned into the state by April 1st. And then so many more fun things after that, I'm sure.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to visitors' comments. Lisa?
Your Honor, I have those.
Okay.
If you'd like me to read those for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
We received 4 emails through the public comment email system. The first one is from Jeff and Kathy Miller of 400 Fairhaven Drive. And they write, "We received our monthly water bill today. It was pretty much illegible. At first glance, it looked as if we owed over $400 for 1 month, plus the $50 each month we pay for a meter on a sprinkler system, which is used only 3 to 4 months per year. In studying it further, there were smudged figures all down both bills, the regular bill for water and sewer and the additional bill for the water meter only, I believe he meant to say. Our normal regular water bill is between $75 and $250 per month. Over the course of a year, we normally pay around $2,000 for water and sewer, and again, an additional $50 per month for 8 to 9 months when that line is never used. We are 2 people living in a 5-year-old house with all new fixtures, so our water use is not excessive. We understand the problem and the reason for the exorbitant water bills. However, understanding what we have been told about the problems with the water issue doesn't help us understand why the department can be so careless as to let the bills go out so haphazardly that they not only can't be read, but at times arrive only a few days before they are due. About 6 years ago, we sold our house we had lived in here in the village for over 50 years and decided to build on Fairhaven Drive because we wanted to stay within the village. Living in the subdivision, we pay rather high taxes. Again, this was our choice to live here, but bringing us to another disappointment in our village, utilities, we have brought to the attention of the village administrator on at least 2 occasions over the past 2 to 3 years. The fact that 3 of the light posts near our corner are tipped very badly and need to be repaired before they fall completely over. For all we pay in taxes to live here, it seems that we should be able to expect matters like this to be taken care of within a reasonable amount of time. Our pride in our village, which we have had for all these years, is quickly diminishing. As we enter Blissfield from either the east or the west, the first thing we see is a junkyard. What does that say to all of the travelers on this main well-traveled highway about the pride we have in our town? These both may be township issues, but certainly the village should have some input on how our entrances are viewed. And then our pride is further brought down by the accounts in the advance each week of the shameful bickering and fighting within our council. The meetings sound more like a scuffle on the first grade playground than a meeting of adult leaders who are looking out for the good and the improvement of our community rather than their own agendas. Thank you for the opportunity to present our frustrations with the current state of affairs in the beautiful village we have called home for our entire lives. We really hope that not only will you take to heart what we have shared, but that you will make it a point, even a priority, to get out of your boxing ring and listen to the common people in the village and work to make this continue to be Blissfield. Sincerely, Jeff and Kathy Miller, 400 Fairhaven Drive. The next one is from Tim Williams of 409 North Lane Street. To the Blissfield Council, I am concerned about the proposal to change the name of village administrator to village manager. A village administrator reports to the village council. A village manager would have complete authority over the HR functions of the village, thus taking the village council's vote and voice away from each council member and give sole power to one individual. Not a good practice. We need to keep the checks and balances in place. The council has been elected to represent the people of the village. If the council hires a village manager, it would also take away the voice of the people. I believe that this proposal is a power grab. I am asking each council member to vote no on changing the function of our village administrator. Thank you for considering this message. Tim Waters, 409 North Lane Street. The next one is from Annalie Brown, 308 Pearl Street. It is my greatest concern that I hope the village council will clearly think through the proposed changes to the village administrator position to village manager. The implementation of the new roles would virtually oust village council from their positions in Blissfield. The people of Blissfield elect council members to serve the community, not be shoved around by a boss. With this proposed change to the village administrator position to village manager, it is stating that the individual who takes that position would have every right to fire and hire anyone working in a village department. To give one person this power is wrong, as it could cause major power balance issues and could result in scenarios where that individual makes decisions not for the good of their constituents, but for themselves. I stand with council as a fellow elected individual who was elected to serve the community and fulfill my position and its roles to the best of my ability. There is a reason we have a council, and that is because more voices are better than one, because we do not live in a dictatorship, we live in a community. Also, the recent article published in last week's Advance regarding Darwin McClary's stance on the village administrator position struck me by surprise. I hope that council will not only think deeply about the consequences that this new village manager position could bring, but also the consequences of upgrading Darwin McClary's employment to permanent. In previous months, Darwin McClary voiced his objection to taking on the position full-time. What has changed? Just because someone has years of experience does not mean they are fit for the job. I hope council will think about this carefully, because Blissfield is not in a position to have a careless transfer of power, especially after spending $13,000 plus to hire a search firm. Blissfield needs a village administrator who will work to help solve the issues taking place, interact with the community, and not create a dictatorship. Please keep your constituents in mind when making your decisions. Thank you. And again, that's from Annalie Brown, 308 Pearl Street. And the last communication is from Sandy Witt. And I don't believe there's an address here. Just my thoughts. I don't feel at this time that Blissfield should change from an administrator to a manager. I don't think one person should have so much power. After all, we elected the council to represent the residents and have no say as to who the administrator would be. I have a question. In the places Darwin was previously employed, was he a manager or an administrator? This change would require a thought process and should not be acted on hastily. The address given in the meeting announcement did not work for me. I hope Lisa will forward this to the village council. Thank you. Sandy Witt. That's all I have, Your Honor.
So would you like to address any of those as far as the village administrator, village manager position goes, Darwin?
Your Honor, at this time, other than to try to address the important and legitimate concerns of our citizens, just to recap a little bit of how we got where we are with the proposed ordinance. As council was discussing the village administrator position and how to proceed, and the process of the administrator search process, we talked about how the village could put itself in the best position to be able to advertise and receive the largest applicant pool, how we could make the position most attractive to manager candidates. At that time, I asked the council if it wanted my input and suggestions, or if it was better that I not share my suggestions. The council did indicate that you were interested in hearing my suggestions, although I do remember one council member specifically saying, listen, we'd love to have your suggestions. That doesn't necessarily mean we will follow them. So this is a work in progress. It is meant to be a discussion with the council about how you want to proceed with the village administrator position. Does the council feel that the current position is working for the village? Does the council feel that changes are needed at this time, and now is the perfect time to discuss these issues since the position is vacant? And whether or not the council feels that the village administrator position is needed at all. All of these discussions should take place at least every time that you have a vacancy in the position, and hopefully even more often than not, a regular review by the council of the position in determining what the needs of the community are and what type of position best meets the needs of the community. So this is meant to be a part of that process, to have an open and honest dialogue and discussion about the administrator position and what the needs of the community are. Ultimately, the council is going to make a decision as to whether or not the current position is adequate, or if changes are needed. And those decisions only come from the council, not from administration. My recommendations, my suggestions to the council are meant to try to help in that process of moving forward. It is also meant to give my insight as a professional manager as to what other candidates will be looking at when they look at this position. The administrator versus a true manager position. But like I note, the council has to make those decisions based on what you feel is best for the community, based on the input that you receive from your constituents. And the only thing that I could ask as interim manager or interim administrator is that we move forward expeditiously either way, because as you know, we are on a strict timeline with Walsh Municipal Services in the recruitment and selection of a new administrator. So it is important that we continue to move along. And maybe this is a discussion that you want to have moving forward and not necessarily as part of this recruitment process. But something you want to take more time to discuss, and that is perfectly fine as well. I think that everybody appreciates the fact that the council is having these open and honest discussions in the sunshine, so that everybody knows what the council is discussing, what you're considering, and what you're thinking. That's all I have on this, Your Honor.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to say?
I was just going to say in response to the Miller's email, are there some of those concerns? Can we get DPW to take a look at those so we can get those addressed for them?
We will be following up on any
Okay.
comments that have come up in these 4 communications that we are able to follow up on. So yes, we will be looking into them.
Thank you, Darwin.
Darwin, I'm going to ask a question, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I'm just going to put it right out there on the table. It was addressed by the Millers, I think, as a matter of fact, regarding what's been in our local newspaper. And in the local newspaper, it stated the part about throwing your hat in the ring. Would it be appropriate for you to, at this time, talk to council as well as village residents that are with us at this time regarding that situation, just so that it's out there, like you say, in the light, so that it can be very clear and we can all hear it at the same time? Is this an appropriate time to do that?
I think it's very appropriate.
Okay.
First of all, my conversation with the reporter at the Advance was that the question was posed to me that they had heard that I was interested in the position. My response to that was that my mind is open to the idea. Recently, My husband and I had discussions on this, and actually my husband had told me before I accepted this position that just remember this is a temporary assignment, and don't consider this on a permanent basis. A couple weeks ago, my husband talked to me again about it. We've talked regularly about how much I enjoy working with Blissfield. I love the people that I work with. I've got a good council that I'm working with. And so my husband approached me and said to me, would you think about this position permanently? And I said, well, it's always a consideration. However, I do have some concerns, personal concerns. My husband and I recently sold 2 homes. We've consolidated. We've moved 3 times in the past year to consolidate our homes into one home. We downsized to a condo that I absolutely love. It's on a lake, and the thought for me of moving again is not an attractive one. And I shared all of this with Melissa when I talked to her at the advance. I have made no decisions about whether or not I would be interested in the permanent position. And as of today, that is still my position. I simply do not know if I would be interested to be considered. However, regardless of my interest in this position, I feel very strongly that this is the proper process for the council to go through. You should be working with the executive search firm, advertising the position, giving everyone who is interested in this position the same opportunity to apply and to be considered by this council for this position. That is important to me, and I know it's important to this council to go through that process, to be deliberative in making this decision. I think the council learned some lessons from the previous selection process, and I know that you are trying very hard to avoid those issues again moving forward. So regardless of what my interest may be in this position, I should be going through exactly the same process as any other person who's interested in the position. No special consideration, no decisions before we've even gone through this process. This should be an open and fair process for anyone who is interested in it. And at the end of the day, it may be that I find that for personal reasons, this is just not a good fit for me. Mainly because of my housing situation. My husband, on the other hand, is more excited about the prospects at this point. But this is an important process for the council to go through. You may find candidates out there who are much more qualified, much better candidates, a much better fit than myself for this position. And you and the community deserve to know that. So I think this is the best way for the council to move forward. That's just my view on it. I hope that answers your question.
It doesn't, and I think that it's in the light, and you've answered it. Thank you.
So now moving to the ordinance, are there any comments before we take any action? We don't necessarily have to take any action.
I think we need to approve minutes first from last week.
Oh yeah, sorry, getting ahead of myself.
That's all right.
I'm too excited. Okay, we need to approve the minutes of the February 22nd meeting.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from our February 22nd, 2021 meeting.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of February 22nd, 2021 meeting. Are there any corrections or questions? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
James,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Minutes approved. First action item is the village manager ordinance. Would
Your
we like-
Honor, if
Yeah,
I could,
go ahead.
if I could note, the only change to the draft that you have for tonight from your previous draft was some language change based on the discussion that we had at the last council meeting about concerns that council members had about adequate protections for village employees. And so this draft includes additional language that references just cause. So the manager would have to have just cause to be able to terminate employees. It would also allow for employees to appeal termination decisions to a neutral third-party arbitrator who would then make any final decisions on a termination decision if an employee chose to appeal the decision. This was meant to try to address the concerns about making sure that the village manager is making sound personnel decisions, and especially decisions on terminating someone's employment. Making sure that the manager's feet are held to the fire in terms of making those tough decisions, providing an opportunity for an employee to be heard by a neutral third party to make a final determination on a termination decision, and also to preserve the important relationships that exist between council and manager, between council and employees, and between the manager and employees. So this language was meant to try to address those concerns that were stated at the last council meeting.
Darwin, I have a couple questions, if I may, regarding what you've just stated. And one of the questions that I have is for the arbitration. I'm not totally understanding what, I think I know what arbitration is, meaning it's that neutral party. I understand that. But who pays for arbitration and what is a typical cost? I know, there's always variables with an arbitrator or anytime something, because it's staying out of the court is my understanding, but there has to be a cost, and who is responsible for that cost?
Very good questions. I would not want to throw a cost figure out to you without having that background information, having some good numbers to give you. I can tell you that it's much, much more cost effective than going through the court system for both sides. Mm-hmm. Depending on the extent of the arbitration process, you may be looking, and again, don't hold me to these figures, but you may be looking at a couple $1,000s. And who would bear the cost would be dependent upon what language the council adopted in the personnel policies. I would recommend that the prevailing party be allowed to be reimbursed for their costs, or that the non-prevailing party pay the cost. My experience with arbitration is that the arbitrator bills for the expenses for arbitration once the arbitration is completed. So my recommendation to council would be that the personnel policies state that the non-prevailing party bear the cost of arbitration, in fairness to the party that prevailed. But council would address that in the personnel policies as to who would bear those costs.
When when an employee would appeal, so if there was an issue currently and an employee appealed there is no cost to an appeal. Is that correct, typically?
There is no cost to file the appeal itself, no.
Okay.
But of course, the arbitration process would have a cost attached to it.
Right, okay. And then you also bring up the comment about the village and the relationship between the council and the manager and council and the supervisor's employees. And that is something that a lot of folks have mentioned as well. If we were to go with this ordinance with the manager in tow, some people's understanding is that literally means that council will not be able to have dialogue with employees of the village, or employees of the village would not be able to have dialogue with council. If they did, or we did, the employee could have repercussions. Could you address that, please, to explain how that would work with the employees council, employees manager, and council manager?
Sure. And thank you for that question as well. So the ordinance, the proposed ordinance states that the council will work through the manager regarding administrative issues, except for purposes of inquiry. So that means that the council can go directly to department heads or to employees when they have a question about the department, whether it's how the department operates, how they handle specific situations, anything that is of a nature of inquiry. What the language of the ordinance is intended to do is to prevent council members from giving direction to employees on work to be performed. So a council member should not be going to an employee of the village and telling them that they want certain work performed, or they want an employee to perform a certain act. Those things should go through the manager to get completed. But the ordinance is clear. It's not meant to prohibit communication between council members and village employees. Just the opposite. It specifically states that the council can have direct communications with employees for the purposes of inquiry.
Could you give an example of that, please? I mean, I think I know, but what would be your example of that situation?
So if a council member had a question about how the Department of Public Works handles priorities for snow plowing in the wintertime, for street snow plowing. They can go directly, that council member can go directly to a department, to the department head, to our Department of Public Works supervisor, and ask that department director directly how that is handled. If a council member has a question about how a water treatment process is handled, they can go directly to Nora and ask about that directly. They don't need to go through the manager for that type of information. It's always good for the manager to be aware of those communications. In case the question comes up to the manager is prepared for that. But this ordinance is meant to encourage that type of communication directly with village employees.
As far as so go ahead, Darwin, my apologies.
The ordinance language is simply meant to make sure that direction on performing work is coming from the manager and not from individual members of council.
If I would like to go to a supervisor and ask that supervisor, hey, are there any particular issues that we should be looking at as far as council is concerned? That supervisor / employee would not have a repercussion to say, it hasn't been brought up yet, but I'm kind of thinking this, or I'm thinking that. How do you feel that things are going with the administrator? Are we allowed to ask those type of questions?
Yes, because those are questions for the purpose of inquiry. And I would hope that whoever is sitting in this chair as manager is encouraging that open and frank discussion between village employees and the council. The council deserves to and has the right to know everything that is happening administratively. Again, individual council members don't give direction to village staff. That should go through the manager.
Okay.
But the council has a right to know everything that we do. And I would hope that every manager that sits in this office respects the role of the council as the elected representatives of the people in needing to know what administration is doing. And employees should feel that they can share that information with council members. Anything that needs to be done, any work that needs to be performed, council should be communicating with the manager on that, because the manager is responsible for making sure that the work gets done, not department heads. It's the manager's responsibility. And the manager has to be able to respond to the council if things are not getting done. It's the manager's job that is on the line if he or she is not properly managing the village.
What if an employee felt that the manager / administrator was harassing them? Who do they go to if that issue is taking place?
Well, that should be addressed in the personnel policies. If there is a claim of harassment and it involves the manager, there should be a process set up specifically for that in the personnel policies that bypasses the manager as a step in that process. And that is one situation where it would be appropriate for an appeal process or a complaint process that involves either the village president or the village council as a body.
Okay. Thank you.
Darwin, I got a couple questions for you. Since we got our packet Friday night, in your excuse me, in your narrative, it said that Attorney Jubai has not yet opined on the addition of the just cause language to the ordinance. Has he since given you an opinion on that?
I believe the village attorney is here tonight, and he can probably speak on the just cause. I
have not yet had an opportunity to put together my thoughts on that. I have some concerns regarding the just cause language. Generally, it makes it much more difficult to terminate an employee. But I would like to put my thoughts together and get them to the council before the council proceeds. I also have some concerns about the way the arbitration is set up, because it essentially removes the village council completely out of the picture as to whether a person is retained or not retained. It would be a village manager and then an arbitrator, a third-party arbitrator. And depending on how that arbitrator is selected, there would have to be some language that it would be an arbitrator selected by the employee and then perhaps the village council or the manager. And that's what I'd like to look at also.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. When can we expect that information?
You should have that probably within a week.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had was in your narrative when you had the meeting on March 4th, and you said that some staff members had recommended that just cause provisions be added. Can you tell me how many? Do you have a firm number on that, or?
I would rather not say how many, because there were a number of employees involved in that meeting who didn't speak at all, and for me to try to give a number may influence you one way or the other. I would say that there were some employees who felt more comfortable after we had that meeting about what the ordinance entailed, what my additional recommendations were going to be. But I don't want to give any idea that it was an endorsement by employees generally for the village manager ordinance, because I would be speaking out of turn if I said anything like that. There was no clear consensus from employees about how they felt about the ordinance. I only heard from 2 or 3 employees who were involved in that meeting. So take that for what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Darwin, I have one question. Could you explain just cause, just for anybody out there listening who doesn't understand what it is?
And I don't know if maybe the village attorney would like to explain the difference between at will and just cause, because those are legal terms. So I would first give the village attorney an opportunity to answer that question for you. And if he would prefer that I give my own non-legal opinion or non-legal understanding, I'm more than happy to share that with you.
Thank you, Darwin. I usually explain just cause versus at will by telling people what at will is that. At will means you can get rid of an employee for any reason or no reason at all, so long as it's not an unjust reason. In other words, you can't get rid of course, somebody because they might be a minority, for the sole reason as a minority. You can't get rid of somebody because they're too old for the job in certain instances. But you can get rid of them if they're old and they're no good at their job. Just the fact that they might be old, but if they're not competent, then they can still be fired. When you set up a just cause situation, what you are saying is that we will not fire you except for X, Y, or Z reasons. And it generally involves some type of appeal or arbitration. And it's usually more of a set in a union type situation. The just cause gives flexibility to where an employee might not be the right fit, to use a term of art. And then in those situations, you could say this is just not working out and we're going to part our ways. So it's a difficult concept to explain, really. It just means that you have an opportunity to terminate an employee for a wide range of reasons or no reasons. Just saying, like you say, it's just not working out for us.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Anyone else?
I feel the public's letters spoke for themselves, and that's pretty much the way that I feel. We have to ask ourselves, are we trying to fix what's not broken? And I don't see anything really broken currently. We have a great staff. We have great department heads. We don't have the massive turnaround or the issues with hiring or firing employees. I was concerned about the proposed ordinance, and I'm more concerned about the arbitration addition, and again, taking council's hands out of the mix. I don't like that one bit. We're elected to represent the citizens. That's what we're up here to do. That's our job. I don't think that totally giving, I guess, putting all our eggs in one basket to one person is the right way to go. I think having 7 minds in order to make those decisions on hiring, firing, appointing gives a little bit more direction, a little bit more representation of the village's residents. I just feel that we're trying to fix what really isn't a problem right now. Hiring Mr. Walsh, I think, will help us bring in the right candidates. And it'll help us determine what we want to find or who we want to hire or what kind of person we want to have here. That's going to help delegate and help create the description of the job itself. You know, I asked council how many have read the village personal policies and procedures, because I think this ordinance conflicts a lot with what a lot of our employees have been hired under and a lot of what they have worked under for their tenure being here. That would have to change. The personal policies and procedures would have to change if we change this ordinance, because of the way that there's misconduct. The misconduct roles regarding council, grievance processes regarding council. So that's a big change. I just feel that what we have now suffices. We don't need to get so nitpicky on creating what's not, or fixing what's not broken. We have a checks and balances system in the village, and the employees have checks and balances with their department heads, with the village manager, administrator. And then they have checks and balances with council. We have checks and balances as representatives of the public. So I think having that chain of command, that chain of processes from the top down is working, and I don't see the need to fix it.
I'm just going to piggyback on what Mike just said. I had several texts and phone calls from village residents since last week, and they all said the same thing. What are we trying to do here? This isn't a big city. You know, we've got good employees, and I would encourage, this is what they said to me, I would encourage you to vote against it. And after reviewing everything and taking a look at the policy, or the policies and employee handbook, that's the way I would vote. I don't see why we want to fix something that seems to be working at this point. We've got employees with 25 years of experience who worked under this current system without any issue.
I also have to bring up something that was discussed previously, Jeff, and this is a question for you. If it were to pass, would it be right to referendum by the public within that 45-day period? Going back and looking at the changes of the current village administrator position, when that position was created back in the 90s or whatever, I'm trying to remember, the police department and a few other, like zoning and building, did not report directly to the village administrator. That was added on in early 2000s. And the way that the ordinance reads there in section 8 is, at the end of that, it talks about the right to referendum on changing that. And that was a lot of the public's issues back at that time. I remember when my father was police chief, that's when we were dealing with that. And they added that in there, the stipulation that the police department, the building and the zoning departments reported directly to the village administrator. And that wasn't in the original ordinance, which created the village administrator position. That's why that referendum language is in that ordinance. So why, if we make changes to this ordinance, would that not be suitable for a right to referendum? Because we're literally handing over duties of the council, the hiring and firing process, over to the village administrator.
I'm rethinking my feelings on that also, because that is quite a change. When you're handing over the hiring and firing directly to the manager, that's a significant enough change. It's not just an amendment to the ordinance that changes the name of the position and adds some more detail from the statute. It does change the manner in which the manager functions, and At that point, there may be a referendum on that. But I'll have that as part of my, my opinion to you.
I see that Mr. Walsh is on Zoom with us. I have a question for you, Mr. Walsh. Okay, does village administrator, village manager, does that really play a role? Absolutely, when we're looking for someone to hire?
First of all, please call me Frank.
Okay,
and,
Frank.
And second of all, you know, no. Whether we're going to be able to attract talent here has far more to do with when candidates come here. They're going to look at the issue with the aquatic center. They're going to look at the issue of the wastewater plant, the things that need to be done, and this council knows needs to be done. And they're going to look at this long list and see, they're going to look at the type of community, and they're going to look and see if they're a match, if they're the right fit for coming here. I've never had a recruitment where someone boiled down to whether it's a manager or administrator or what type it is. Now, are there candidates who are going to come in and say, well, if I don't have the manager title and I don't have all the ability or the responsibilities of a manager and being able to handle personnel like I want to, I'm going to shy away. Could happen, but overall, it's very unlikely that it's going to push people away. And you have to ask yourself, what type of people are you going to push away with that? If someone truly wants to come to a community like Blissfield, I love the community. I think it's a great place. If I was looking for a job, I'm going to look at a whole lot of other things that are going on in Blissfield than rather you have a manager or administrator title. Because I'm going to come in there, you know, the best saying for management I've ever heard is, and this is what I tried to do in my job in my community where I work, show them that you care before you show them what you know. Come in and get to know, care for the people you work with. And that sounds like what's been happening there over the course of time. And so I know that's a long answer, but it's an important question in the part of a recruitment and deserves a lengthy response. So to answer your question in one word, no.
Thank you, Frank. Frank, also, as far as the salary goes, whether manager or administrator, council has total control over what they want to offer, either manager, administrator, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because if you look at villages in Michigan, you have village managers, you have village administrators. And when I'm asked to do salary studies for communities, when they bring me in for recruitment, I'm not looking at whether it's a manager or administrator. I'm looking at the population and where they're located. A village of 3,000 up north may pay differently than a village down in the east side of the state, down by Beverly Hills or Birmingham. You have to look at all those things when you set a school superintendent, as Gwen would know. When you're looking at those sort of things, you have to look more at where it's located and not so much what the title is.
Okay. Thanks, Frank.
You're welcome.
I think I concur with Mike as far as how things have been going. I don't even remember the last time a department head was ever terminated. So I think the way that things have been going have been working fine. Is there a need to look at the ordinance? Possibly, but maybe this isn't the time to do that. I think that all of our ordinances actually need to be updated, but I don't necessarily think this would be the time to do it.
And it's definitely a great time for dialogue, because we are, like Darwin alluded to, this is the right time to do it. We're starting fresh, and why wouldn't we want to have everything set in place for the next manager or administrator. It does make sense, and it makes sense to discuss potential changes down the line. I just don't see the need for it now. Darwin did hit on some very good points in his proposal in regarding streamlining the process. I agree. Maybe council doesn't have to have our hands in every bit of hiring, the daily staff, but I'm not sure that I'm willing to give up, and this isn't a power grab on myself. I think, again, there's 7 representatives of the village, and I think it's better to say, okay, we have some checks and balances of this organizational structure from our employees working up to our department heads, our manager, council, and ultimately the village residents. I don't see us wanting to or willing to change and put that manager position up at the same level of council. I think it needs to continue that the administrator reports to council and it follows that chain of command. I know I've talked with a few other administrators or managers throughout the state recently, and they say that there have been changes to where, as of recent, you see more of the manager positions trying to work its way up sort of at the same level as council in the authoritarian, I guess, line on the organizational chart. But again, the way that the process works, the way that it has been working for the village, I think has been successful and doesn't need to change. Once we use Frank's services, we're going to seek the right person. We're going to get the information that we want to have regarding what do we want to accomplish, what do we want this new person to accomplish. And I think that's going to help us get the right candidate and move forward. Personally, I don't think we need to make such a drastic change, and especially with the feedback that I've got from the village residents. I think we should pump the brakes a little bit on this one.
I'd like to say thank you to Darwin for bringing this subject to light. I think the input we've had from council and residents has done exactly what we should be doing with all of our ordinances, Bob, reviewing them from time to time. We've gotten excellent feedback. I've gotten excellent feedback from different residents. I've enjoyed the input from Frank, conversations with other village leaders. I've reached out through Michigan Municipal League. I think I would like to stay dynamic in my thinking that when we do hire a permanent person, if they want to revisit some of these issues, we give them that opportunity then. But as of right now, I think it looks like we're coming to a consensus that we're satisfied with the way things are written. But let's not have any absolute decisions when we do hire that new person. If they want to revisit, give them that opportunity. And again, I think it just allows for better discussion going forward, open communications, reviewing the processes of everything. So from what I'm hearing from you guys, fellow council members and residents, I think it's time to just move on from this issue and move forward looking for a candidate with the way the ordinance is written.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. I think this discussion was definitely needed, but my focus is to find the candidate that fits Blissfield, and that's the way that I think the direction we should go. If there's a consensus, then we're not going to move on this at all and just leave it the way it is, unless someone else wants to move it forward. All right, then. We're just going to leave it the way it is. Next action item is the ordinance to amend purchasing code. Right here is the perfect example of looking at an ordinance. It needs to be cleaned up or needs to be changed. And this is kind of like what I was just saying about looking at all of our ordinances. So Darwin sent the amendment via email this afternoon. I'm not sure if everyone got that, the corrections that he made in it.
I got it late and have not had a chance to look at it yet. Very in depth, anyway.
And Your Honor, there were some changes made to it later this afternoon. What I would ask of council is that we move this to the March 22nd meeting agenda so that you have time to review it before we discuss it in any detail and decide how you may want to proceed with it.
All right, then that sounds good. We're gonna move that ordinance to amend the purchasing code to the next meeting. The next action item is to award the contract for 2021 pool and splash pad opening winterization services.
Your Honor, administration is requesting that council waive competitive bidding requirements due to no advantage to the village and award the contract for the 2021 pool opening and winterization services to B&B Pool Service and Supply Company of Livonia, Michigan. We had discussed this contract previously, and the council expressed an interest in moving forward with contracting with this firm. This firm is the firm that performed the work on the pool last year. And from what I understand, this company was actually the subcontractor who constructed the pool itself. So they're very knowledgeable of the pool facility. And until our public works employees are well versed and trained on all of the work that goes into preparing the facility for opening and also winterizing it in the fall, I would recommend that we contract this work out.
So we have a recommended motion. Would someone like to make that? You need to unmute yourself, Gwen, if you're making it.
Thank you. All righty, let me get to my place now. Here we are. To award the contracts for the 2021 pool and splash pad opening and 2021 pool and splash pad winterization services to B&B Pool Service and Supply Company of Livonia, Michigan, in the total amount of $4,900 in accordance with the firm's proposals dated February 1st, 2021, and authorize the village administrator to execute the contracts on behalf of the village.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to follow the recommended motion. Is there any questions or comments on the motion? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Helps if I unmute myself too. Barb?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Jan?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes. Motion carried. So Darwin, you'll let them know that we let them, you'll let them know that they can do that, right?
Yes, I will be signing those proposals and returning those to the company.
Okay. The next action item, ordinance establishing Department of Community Services, appointment of Director of Community Services.
Your Honor, administration is requesting that the Village Council consider adopting an ordinance to create the Department of Community Services in the position of Director of Community Services. This ordinance would consolidate economic development and management of parks and recreation facilities and operations into one department. As the council is aware, we're trying to move forward as expeditiously as we can with the opening of the aquatic center. It has brought up some issues of proper oversight of the aquatic center. We have younger employees who work at the center during the summer months, the pool manager, assistant pool managers, and lifeguards. We want to make sure that we have proper management and oversight of those employees. And at the same time, start to consolidate Parks and Recreation services so that we have a full-time director who is managing those services. We do not have the financial resources to be able to establish a separate Parks and Recreation department at this time. The council previously had asked Mr. May to provide a proposal on expanding Parks and Recreation programming and estimates on additional revenue generation to be able to justify an expanded role in that position. And I am hoping that this is one step in the process, maybe over the next couple of years or so, where we are able to spin off Parks and Recreation services into its own separate department. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources at this time. We do need to have a department head who is managing Parks and Recreation services. I've spoken with both Heather Marks, our current Economic Development Director, as well as Eric May about my ideas on this. If the council was to move in this direction, the role of Mr. May in providing the planning and implementing Parks and Recreation programming would continue in the same manner that it has. There would be no changes in that regard. And there is the possibility that that his position could see an expanded role as we continue to work our way through the planning for programming at the aquatic center itself. So it's we've got some challenges, but it's also an exciting time for us in planning all of this out. But my recommendation at this time is that the council consider adopting an ordinance that consolidates economic development and Parks and Recreation services and facilities into one department with one director overseeing both. Heather has indicated that that she feels she can take on these responsibilities and that it would not be overly burdensome to her. And so my recommendation is that we proceed in this manner.
Is there any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a couple regarding this position. So if I'm understanding correctly, Director Marks will have, Heather there would have the DDA, Main Street, Economic Development, and Parks and Recreation, supervisor to that capacity. And then of course that would also include the aquatic center. And this would come with an additional stipend or addition to her salary of $6,000. And that I do question how one person can efficiently and effectively run all of this. The Main Street, DDA, and ED are a challenge. I'm not opposed to streamlining things and having a supervisor. I understand that and I respect that idea. I'm just not sure how one person can be responsible for this type of material at one time. I know $6,000 isn't an incredible amount of money, but I'm curious as to where that would be coming from what fund. And with that type of an increase, and again, I'm just stating some numbers here. If I understand correctly, my numbers are accurate, Heather would have a salary currently of $49,000 with an increase of $6,000 for those additional responsibilities, would have a salary up to $55,000. That's a 12% increase in her wages. I'm not saying, I'm just giving some facts here. These are what my numbers are. I just don't know where that 6,000 is going to be coming from. And that's one of my questions, in addition to the workload of one person.
And those are excellent questions. You are absolutely correct in your synopsis of what would be happening. I posed the same question to Heather because I too was concerned about whether or not her current workload would allow her to take on these additional responsibilities. Mm-hmm. We need to keep in mind that she will not be performing these duties alone, that we will continue to have a Parks and Recreation programmer. Mm-hmm. Eric will continue doing the programming portion of the work. And the pool managers and lifeguards would report to Heather. She would be expected to be supervising the aquatic center by going out and paying periodic visits to the facility. I would assume on a daily basis, just to see how things are going, touching base with the pool manager, looking around, just seeing observing on how things are going. There have been some issues that were identified from last year that will definitely need to be addressed for this year. So there will be other people that will be working underneath her who will be doing most of the day-to-day work. But the additional cost to have someone supervising these activities is the $6,000. So that is correct. At this point, if we want someone who is going to be providing that oversight to the aquatic center, I believe that this is the most cost-effective way for us to do this based on the resources we have available. The costs would be split between Parks and Recreation and the pool departments. And as we move forward and we have a better idea of what the costs of the aquatic center are and the other job duties, we will have to tweak how we split those costs out and where we charge those costs back to. So it will be a work in progress. But the additional costs would be borne by those two departments. If we determine that the costs of Parks and Recreation services, including the aquatic center, are more than what we had anticipated taking in revenue, those costs would be offset from the general fund reserves. That is the only source of monies that we would have to be able to accommodate these costs. And I do want to be perfectly clear and upfront with the council about that. The aquatic center we do not have a clear handle at this point on what the costs of operating that for an entire season are. So this is something that has to be monitored closely. At the end of this year, it needs to be analyzed, and we need to reevaluate it in terms of operations, how, the length of time that the facility is open, The staffing levels, everything will have to be reevaluated at the end of the year. And we will have to make it within future budgets. So this is one step in a process.
Would the DDA Main Street consider taking that $6,000 increment and adding and paying that difference so that the $5880, the $6,000 would continue to come out of the general fund, and then, for lack of better words, the DDA Main Street would take care of the other $6,000?
I would caution the council about doing something like that. Part of it gets into a legal question that probably the village attorney would have to look into as far as how you can legally expend Downtown Development Authority funds. And there are a number of issues involved in looking at that. Remember that the Downtown Development Authority is funded through tax capture within a specific district.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. While the aquatic center serves the entire community, so you have to be cautious about that.
Okay. No, I didn't think of it that way, Darwin. I hear what you're saying.
I would agree with Darwin. I think with the aquatic center being outside of the DDA district, it would be hard to, from a legal standpoint, justify that.
Yeah.
Darwin, I agree that the oversight needs to be done at the pool. We learned that last year. My question is, how do we ask Eric to continue doing what he's doing and grow the programming, whatnot? He would have to get some sort of stipend to do that as well, whether he's spending the time, creating, aerobics classes or swim lane, whatever, he needs some sort of compensation in that as well. If Eric's going to put in the time to create the programming, then he's owed that as well. I get, unless Heather's going to do all that. I'm just trying to weigh both sides there on number one, not stepping on Eric's toes, but number two, making sure that we're not taking advantage of him as well.
Exactly. And this is why I think there is a great opportunity for Eric. What I heard from the council at your last meeting was that you were looking to Eric to be able to expand programming to justify an expanded Parks and Recreation Department, and be able to, hopefully, the goal would be to move to its own independent full-time department. If we can expand the programming and generate sufficient revenue to make it financially feasible to do that. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that any expanded programming that would be managed by Eric would have to come with it consideration for an increase in compensation for any additional work that's being performed.
And we're 100% sure Eric wants to be involved with the pool programming?
Right there he is. Eric, are you able to talk?
I am able to talk. Thank you.
Can you address Jerry's question?
Well, yeah, it just depends obviously I've been interested in this, talking to you guys in the past. And yes, I'm a little disappointed on the direction, and that's not a slam on Heather by any means. I'm kind of looking at this as a taxpayer too. We have a $2 million facility out here that we want to run on a $50 budget. And I get the money's tight. I get that. But as talking with people around town, they want this facility to be, they're paying taxes on this. They want this to be a top rate notch facility. And no, we're not going to have it there this year. We're not going to have it. We want to make improvements from last year, but we need to have a 5-year plan on this facility where it's going to progress every year to where, the taxpayers want it where we want it. Now, as far as my role in the matter, yeah, I'm pretty maxed out with what I do now, and I don't have a problem with what I'm getting paid right now. But if my role expands, like I appreciate what Mike was saying. Yeah, I mean, if someone else is getting a little stipend from it, I expect a little bit too. And that's not to say, hey, someone asked me a question, hey, you owe me $20. I'm a team player, but I rolled out a proposal 3 years ago to council, which some of you guys weren't on council yet, on how to run a Parks and Rec and how to run pool programming. And it was put aside at that time. And, I get it, things have changed, but, this has been a 3-year project for me. And, I'm more than willing to help. But yeah, I would like to be compensated for, I have the experience. I've been involved in, business and stuff too. So yeah, I would like to, and we have a pool committee that's going to be involved in that too. So I would love to be involved in some way. Yes.
Well, maybe between Eric, you and Heather, you could address this. If I understand correctly from the ordinance, it's stating that the duties and programs of the Park and Rec coordinator may include aquatic center programming if recommended by the director. So I'm hearing that as that's exactly what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, and I don't think that's totally fair to me that, I'm pretty maxed out now, and I had a plan for what I rolled out to you guys before, 10 to 15 hours a week at what I announced to you guys for a salary. And now I'm being asked to kind of do some of that, on my own on top of what I'm doing now. So it's not really fair, but, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I think I should be involved. Obviously, I'm not going to be a department head anymore, which is, that's fine. I'm not, we run into black every year. Parks and Rec has always been a self-sufficient department, and to take $3,000 out of the Parks and Rec kind of concerns me. I was threatened last year with my job more than once that if we weren't meeting, being in the black, that my job was going to be eliminated. So, now you're taking that $3,000 out of there. Who's to say now that the next director or administrator comes in and says, well, you're not making it, you're $3,000 short, we're going to eliminate Parks and Rec. So I don't appreciate that part of it. If like Darwin says, if it rolls out that, it comes out of the general fund, that's fine. But I've worked hard to make this Parks and Rec self-sufficient throughout the years, watching my pennies and nickels, and it's been very successful. So, that's some of my concerns. If you're going to increase my job, I'm making $7,000 a year, which I have no problem with for what I'm doing. We've added quite a few things here in the last 7 years. But if you start adding on other things and you're giving money to someone else, I would expect to have something too.
Heather, would you be expecting Eric to go out to do some sort of oversight at the pool?
Originally, yes. And this proposal, no. I mean, I don't know what my role is now with the pool. This is all, we've talked about it briefly in the last week. I'm in the midst of soccer signups, and it's a big busy time for me right now, which, in my previous proposal, I had no problem with, planning on going out there during midday or at the end of the day and checking on things. But that's not my position now. So if I'm drawing up programming, that's a pretty big task. So I'd expect, some kind of compensation from that. What that is, I don't know. I haven't even thought about that yet.
Heather, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts as far as the oversight out there at the pool? Would you be going out on a daily, twice a day, 3 times a day kind of a thing for the oversight? Or is this something that you would be asking Eric to do as well?
Actually, I would look for guidance from Darwin as far as what he would expect from me and in this role.
And I think that's, she's asking me for my input. What I would expect is that the community services director would be visiting the pool facility on a daily basis to observe what's happening, consult with the pool manager, and addressing any issues or concerns that come up. My expectation for as long as I'm here is that Eric will continue doing exactly what he has been doing, and that is to focus on Parks and Recreation programming. He puts on some absolutely awesome recreational programs. We would want him to continue doing that. And the reason why the ordinance mentions the possibility of expanding his role into programming at the pool was to make it clear that we consider Parks and Recreation programming to include the Aquatic Center. The Aquatic Center will be part of the Parks and Recreation Department, part of the Community Services Department. And I don't think any of us would expect that if someone was taking on additional job duties that it would not result in some type of reconsideration of the compensation that's being provided to that position. We have to be fair to our employees. We have to be fair to Eric. If he is taking on additional responsibilities, additional job duties, he should be compensated fairly for the additional work that he's performing for us. You know, I think all of us should have that expectation.
So if Eric is responsible, then becomes responsible, continues to be responsible, whatever verbiage we would like to use for the programming of the pool, then I'm hearing you say he should be compensated. But then there's a pool committee, and then we have an ordinance being proposed that that's going to encompass that. I'm not, yeah.
I think the position is needed, and it would help, I guess, oversee and streamline. Again, I see what you're trying to accomplish here, Darwin. My concern is taking the money from the Parks and Rec Fund when clearly it should be coming out of the pool. The pool, we all know, is a big red budget suck, because that's just a fact. And if that oversight or whatever that time that's being spent is being spent on the pool, it shouldn't come out of the existing Parks and Rec Fund, because that's what Eric operates the existing programs on. If we're going to expand anything, if we're going to expand anything at the pool, it needs to come somehow from pool funds, which again, we know never is in the black, but we have to come up with a solution. We have to come up with a way to say, okay, we're going to have this much programming or this new programming, and the program's going to cost this much, but we need to tack on whatever percentage in order for the oversight or for the operations of those programs to make it work. I like the idea. I just don't think that, number one, we can afford to take it out of the general fund. We know we're going to be hurting 21, 22. And number two, it shouldn't come directly out of the existing Parks and Rec Fund, because they operate exactly on that funding now, and it doesn't have anything to do with the pool.
And
we have to have the oversight somehow. And how do we have the oversight? Because as has been stated, it is absolutely crucial, whatever words we like to use there, that we have the oversight out there. It needs to be done. And as you stated earlier, Mike, the expectations of our residents, and I would be one of those residents, is there should be some programs out there more than what we obviously had, last year. How do we go about all this? That's the big deal.
they have to be self-supporting. We know that, and that's plain and simple. On top of that, the programming needs to be overseen by somebody, and that has to come out of those programming funding. We can't do the programs for free. We have to charge somehow for them, and we have to make money on them, or at least break even on them. That's all there's to it.
Darwin and Heather, this $6,000 does this cover a 12-month span or just the 4 months the pool is operating and open?
This is an increase in the annual salary. So the oversight of one of the things we need to keep in mind is that we're trying to consolidate parks and recreation facilities, programming, and the aquatic center and economic development all into one department. So it's not just a matter of managing the pool facility. It's also a matter of managing the park system that we have, properly making sure that our facilities are properly inspected and maintained, and coordinating with the Department of Public Works on maintenance issues. And that really is pretty much a year-round function. As you can see from the pool facility, the planning for opening the pool really starts in January, February. It runs right up until it closes. Actually, even after it closes in September, into probably October, or close to it, by the time everything's said and done. So it almost is a year-round operation. But it doesn't just include the pool facility. It does include properly managing our parks and recreation facilities.
And I agree with that. We need that to happen, because if you drive through the parks, you look at things that need to be fixed. You look at issues over at Farber Field, that haven't been addressed. That stuff does need to be done. And I wholeheartedly agree with the position. Again, it's just how do we fund it? And right now, I don't think we can do it out of the Parks and Rec Fund. We kind of pride ourselves on the park system, on the pool, and on the things that we offer our residents. But again, they come with a cost. And right now, it's not a pretty situation. We need to keep that in mind. So again, I think we need to go back to the drawing board on how do we fund it, and give us a better way of funding it before I could say, okay, let's move forward with it. And that's certainly nothing against Derek, certainly nothing against Heather, because I'm happy, Heather, I think you're amazing, the roles that you do now. Again, it just falls back on money, and that's what it boils down to.
May I say something? Sorry, Gwen. I would hope that with the new programming that we would be bringing in, like you said, the swimming lessons, the, pool yoga, all of those, water aerobics, all of those things would then allow to help fund for the position as well. There's a lot of what I feel missed opportunities, especially at the pool, and being able to generate income. So
perhaps that's what maybe, Heather, what we could do is I know this is going to perhaps be something that you want to do, is to table it until we can have more details. For example, what you just said, if that's going to be one of the programs, okay, say your water aerobics, and just to get the numbers out there so council could see, this is when an idea of when water aerobics would be, this is going to be the cost, this is how much money would be generated. For myself, that's what's lacking with me. It's not that the position isn't warranted. It certainly is, but it's just how do we pay for it, and not just, Heather, for yourself, but if Eric is having that responsibility of working with the programming, there needs to be a stipend there as well. it needs to be discussed at least. I would agree with Mike there. I do. Is there any way that that could possibly be done for next week's committee of the whole, so we could see some numbers? I know Eric had some before preliminary, as you're stating, Eric, a couple of years ago, whatever it may have been. And maybe those numbers can be shown once again to council a little more now if they're updated for 21, for the year 2021.
Sure.
I think that's a good idea. Were you going to say something, Barb?
It's okay.
Oh, no, then I agree with Gwen and I guess Mike about let's put this on our committee of the whole, discuss it some more. Have like those numbers when you were saying.
Yes, I would like very much, I mean, for the presentation to include what type of programs and the cost of having that program, if a lifeguard needs, I mean, just some numbers, some rough numbers. I need to see some numbers in front of me to have that understanding.
And
how
Gwen,
it's going to be paid for.
Gwen, I've got all those numbers that I presented like 3 years ago that you weren't on, so I can show you and I'll bring them to council also.
Okay. Okay. If it could be presented to us, you know, on with a shared screen, because I think we're still going to be Zoom, that would be wonderful.
Would that sound good, Darwin?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay.
Oh, I have another question though. If I understand correctly, the lifeguards and those guys are going to start to be interviewed. Who will be interviewing those people if this position is not created as of yet? I'm asking that question so that we can look ahead.
The positions will be advertised. And then the council will have to determine who's going to interview those positions, whether it's going to be the council, whether you want the village administrator to interview those positions. Those are discussions we can continue to have.
Okay.
But we will be proceeding to advertise these positions right away because we really need to start the recruitment process.
Right. Do we have I'm sure it was in there with those dates there, Darren. Is there an interview date on there or an interview week?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So that's, did you want to say something else, Heather?
I have nothing else.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, then the next action item is to authorize to advertise the Blissfield Aquatic Center pool manager, assistant manager, and lifeguard positions.
Your Honor, we are requesting that the council authorize us to proceed with the advertising and recruitment of the open positions of pool manager, assistant pool manager, and lifeguards.
I have a quick question. Are these the same rates we used last year?
These are the same rates, yes.
Hourly rates? Okay, thank you.
So I would look for a motion.
I will make a motion to authorize administration to proceed to advertise for the open positions of pool manager, assistant pool manager, and lifeguards.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to authorize administration to proceed to advertise for the open positions of pool manager, assistant pool manager, and lifeguards. If there aren't any other questions or comments, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes. Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, motion carried. And we have
Hey,
the,
Bob,
did you say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Eric. Just for the record, I have spoke to someone about being the pool manager, an adult that is interested, and with last year's assistant manager who wants to come back. Just so you guys know that we're not totally starting out of the hole. So
Good to know.
Okay, well, you can discuss that with Darwin, and we're going to move forward. But I just see the attached pool committee memo. Darwin, is that something you want to talk about or just mention?
Your Honor, at this time, I would turn this item over to Eric if he has anything more he'd like to comment on it as far as his memo is concerned.
All right.
thanks, Darwin. These we originally started out with 6. 2 people have dropped off this committee. These 4 people are interested in doing whatever they can to help. They've mentioned programming and everything associated with the pool they're interested in doing. So Heather's gonna have to look at them and kind of figure out what exactly their role is going to be. But they are very willing and able, and we could probably pick up a couple more people. I'd like to have. We originally wanted to have 6 on this committee. Like I said, 2 have dropped off. So it's just more eyes and ears and ideas is how I look at it.
All right. Any questions for Eric concerning the pool committee?
I just have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Why isn't the Parks and Rec Advisory Board doing this stuff?
Well, it was brought to council. You guys had mentioned that you wanted a pool committee. So that's kind of where we ran with this. We originally had 3 members of the Parks and Rec Board on this committee. 2 have dropped off. We still have 1 on the committee. And the other 3 are interested residents that want to be on this committee. So basically just following the lead of the council on this one.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Eric, I do have some questions as well. Will the pool committee, will they be responsible for addressing or looking at some of the concerns from last year's season? As well as, are they going to be taking a look and at like a membership kind of a program? And last but not least, are they also going to be looking into rules and regulations, signage for the pool?
I'm sure they'll have a hand. There has not been a direction they have been given yet. We were kind of waiting for their approval from the council to see what their role is going to be in this on this committee. Now, with the way direction we're going, I'm not sure what their role will be, but any of those things you mentioned would be very helpful. And their advisory committee, obviously, just like the Parks and Rec are advisory committees. So, and we brought this up at our Parks and Rec meeting, on the last meeting, for anyone to be interested in being on this committee. Like I said, 3 originally were interested, and we picked up 3 other members of the community. 2 have dropped, so we're at 4. Which, like I said, I think we could go a couple more people. I know there's a couple more people out there that's probably interested, but we need to make sure we have the right people on this board, not a board, but advisory committee.
So will this advisory committee work with your Parks and Rec committee, as Jerry was kind of alluding to?
This will be under the direction of the pool. I'm assuming the community, what's the exact title of this, community service? This will they'll report to, I'm assuming.
And they've not met to begin any of these discussions as of yet that I just mentioned.
No, they're waiting on direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. We're going on to thanks, Eric. We're going on to the next action item, Cass Farmers Market. You want to talk about that, Darwin?
Your Honor, at this time, I would turn this item over to our DDA Main Street Director, Heather Marks, who can present this item to you. Is Heather still with us? I'm
She's
not sure if she-
online.
So Heather is requesting approval from council to allow the DDA Main Street Board to hold the River Raisin farmers market in Ellis Park for the 2021 market season. And she provided you with the background information regarding the farmers market and what that would entail. I don't know what happened to Heather, but.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
sorry. I had to reset up my microphone on the computer. I apologize.
All right, then, the floor is yours.
So at the last DDA meeting, it was approved to do a farmers type market at the park. And so I am asking for a recommendation to allow us to hold the market in Ellis Park. And I did submit the regulations and those types of things.
The regulations seem very thorough, Heather. Who is a part of this market? Who's in charge of it? Who's working it? Are they receiving a stipend? How does this, sounds great, but how does it work? I mean, what are the logistics behind it?
Sure. So we actually have a community volunteer who is willing to start the market off and act as a market manager until we are able to hold our initial vendor meeting and allow us to, at that time, locate a permanent market manager.
So you're going to be asking a person to volunteer from the community to be the market manager?
One of the vendors who will be there already, yes.
How are you going to vet this manager?
So we had thought we would allow them to rent for free during the season, so they wouldn't have to pay for their space.
No, I mean vetting them. How do you know they're going to be any good?
Oh, sorry.
How do you know they're going to do the job? Are they going to be able to go ahead and if somebody comes in and they have a gun in the antique section or the flea market section of the market, and are they going to be the person that goes over there and says, "Hey, you got a gun, you got to go"?
That would be correct.
And how is this person going to be vetted? How are you going to know that's going to be a good person that's capable of doing this job?
I guess without knowing who it is, I can't answer that question. Without interviewing or asking someone, I would look for somebody that maybe participates in a farmer's market in a different community.
So you're going to kind of go through like an interviewing kind of a process for a market manager, for lack of better words?
Yes.
And they don't expect a kind of a stipend. You're saying that they would have the opportunity to have a booth for free for the season.
That is my initial thought.
Gotcha.
However, I have not asked the board about regarding that decision.
And you're talking about the DDA board, correct?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. That's probably just my only concern, Heather, is I think, again, I know I'm repeating myself. You guys have done a wonderful presentation, but we all know that sometimes the devil's in the details, and you've got to have that right person that can do that market, that obviously can talk with people, as well as have that that backbone, for lack of better words, to, if somebody comes in and they're not being appropriate, they don't have the requirements that you are asking for. That's my only concern.
if there were any issues at all, the market manager would then be able to come to me, and then we could also take any decisions to the board.
Will the market manager be handling any cash for payment of the stalls on a monthly basis, or will you be billing for that?
That will not be done through the manager. That would actually take place. They would have to pay at the village office.
So if somebody wanted to come last minute, that would not be an option for them.
Correct.
This is one of the examples again of, the things that Heather is doing for us. Heather, and I see the need going back to that position of community services director, because this is above and beyond her scope regarding her programming with the DDA Main Street program. And I know she's done a lot of stuff with the pool, or, researching the furniture, things like that. So again, taking the step back, how do we take some funds out of this, Heather, to fund your position? Because you're obviously putting in the time, you're putting in the effort, and I think you should be paid for that. But again, it's just how do we earn the funds to do it? Do we charge a little bit more per vendor, and then that goes towards your oversight on this project? That's the kind of, I guess, questioning that I have, because you're taking such a big realm in so many different things, so many different aspects of the village, the Main Street, the pool, this sort of stuff, which is beyond your normal scope. And again, hats off to you, and we appreciate what you do, and I think you deserve to be rewarded for it. But again, how do we fund that position? Because, again, you're doing this generally out of the kindness of your heart, or, doing it as part of the program, but really it doesn't fall within your realm anyway. So I see the need for the position. I see the benefit of it. It's just how can we pull it off?
I think as village council, we have to find the funds to invest and allow Heather or whomever to develop the program over a number of years before we get that return on investment. So I'm with you, Mike. We've got to locate these funds. I remember there was talk in the last budget round about a part-time person. $23,000, $24,000 comes to mind. I wonder what happened to those funds. And maybe we really need to examine the budget with great detail to try to find as much investment dollars as possible, so we can get some of these programs started, so that we can start enjoying the return on investment and the investment we've already made with the $2.2 million aquatic facility. It's kind of like we're chasing our tail a little bit, but we've just got to find the dollars somewhere. So I'm with you. I don't know if we need to form a smaller sub ad hoc committee to maybe relook at the budget. But I'd love to find some investment dollars that we could put into programming like this, especially with Parks and Rec, because I think that has an immediate impact on a lot of residents. I mean, so many people get outside and enjoy what we have to offer, not just the organized leagues, but just the free green space as well. So I love this idea, getting people into the park. Heather, my question to you is, where in the park are you going to locate this?
So initially we had thought we would start towards the gate that goes back to the old pool and allow people to kind of line the path similar to when we did the trees on the left-hand side, and then continue back. There's, parking back by the old pool. There's also a large grass area that's behind the baseball field as well over there. Or is that, I might be thinking of the park, the playground, sorry. The grass behind the playground.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I think those walking paths that are proposed would even do this more justice and provide a better experience for shoppers. I think that's another win-win. So Great. Thank you, Heather.
Going back to the money part, Jacob's looking into a grant for the trails. We should look into a grant for the pool. Into a grant that would help us be able to do the programming.
What do you think, Darwin?
We can always check into grant opportunities to see if there is funding available for programming.
All right. So are we asking for a motion to allow the farmer's market? Is that what we want?
Yeah. Yes.
Someone make that motion?
I'll move we allow Heather to move forward with the River Raisin Market as presented.
I second that.
Moved and seconded to let Heather move forward with the farmer's market as presented. If there aren't any other questions, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Ann,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes. Motion carried. Thanks, Heather. Officers report. You have the treasurer's report attached. Anything for the treasurer? Any questions?
A couple of days ago, I wanted to put out the past due accounts. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me very well? Okay.
Yes.
The past due accounts has increased. So we have $150,087 in delinquents. The governor's shut off orders should be lifted by the end of the month unless she extends it. So we are not bringing in all the money that was shipped for the water sewer bonds, but we are bringing in a majority. There's $104,822 that is active accounts right now, and it continues to rise. So it's becoming a concern that some of these people cannot afford their water bills. And I'm hoping that they receive those letters that we sent out last year. I know a few of them have taken advantage of the programs to have their water bills paid, but the majority are not. And I'm concerned that they're not understanding the process behind it of how to apply for help. So I want to encourage these people to come visit me at the bills office, and I will be happy to sit down with them and tell them what programs are available for them, because I don't want them to get far behind on their water bills to the point where there's no end in sight for them. So I want to address Chuck Miller regarding the email that he sent out. There has been a problem with the printer. So the water bills, the majority of them seem to be okay, but there's a good portion of the bills that do not print correctly. So what happened is, let's say somebody owns $125 on their water bill, and somebody else owns $300. That $125 water bill does not show the $125 very well in the box where it says bill due. That $300 is smeared below it, so it's causing confusion as to which number belongs to them. So this is being addressed. The company that released the printer from is going to be here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and they're going to address the issue. And if they can't, Darwin and I have already talked about exploring other paths that we're going to take if this problem continues. So apparently it started last month. We got a couple of complaints, but I hadn't heard any of them until this month. So there's been a lot of phone calls Thursday and Friday regarding this. I've had a lot of people come in. Another thing is, he says that there's been times where he has not received his water bill until it's due. I can't answer that. I can't, because I mailed them out on the 1st of every month. So I don't know why it's taking so long. I know our post office has done a wonderful job but it doesn't fall on them. It falls on the processing facility, which I'm assuming is in Detroit. So I just want to point out that I sent them out on the 1st. We have received the annual audit. We have received a draft of the annual audit. Darwin, Lisa, and I are sitting down to go over what's about the management discussion and analysis section. And hopefully Daniel will be here to present the audit at the March 22nd council meeting. He's on the agenda, pending that the audit will be complete by then. So they are still working on some final things. So I think that's it.
All right.
Your Honor, if I could just note, there was an email that was sent out to the council late this afternoon. In addition to the agenda, Chief Greenleaf is requesting authorization to hire a police officer because we are going to be losing one of our police officers shortly. I don't know if council received that background brief, but Chief, could you fill the council in on this issue?
Sure. I received a notice of resignation on Friday morning. When we did interviews last fall, we had two great candidates. Jerry was on that committee with me, and it was a tough call which one to hire at that time. We did hire Ronnie Corey. He's turned out to be a fabulous officer. The other candidate is a retired police officer. We were very impressed with him at the time. I've got 30 days, but if council is willing to move forward with the hiring of a new officer, that 30 days does give me time to get the psychological and physical exams done and get those results back, as well as updating his background check in anticipation of higher date somewhere around April 6th, which would be a Monday.
So, Your Honor, just for clarification purposes, what the chief is asking is authorization to present an offer of employment to Mr. Thomas Anton for the position of police officer with the Blissfield Police Department, contingent upon successful completion of an updated background check, pre-employment physical and psychological examination, at the starting wage of $24.34 per hour and benefits in accordance with the 2020-21 village pay scale.
So I would ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize an offer of employment to Mr. Thomas Anton for the position of police officer with the Blissfield Police Department, contingent upon successful completion of an updated background check, pre-employment physical and psychological examination at the starting wage of $24.34 an hour and benefits in accordance with the 2020-21 village pay scale.
Support.
Moved and supported to support the motion that Trustee Hayes has made. Do you have any questions for the chief? Or
I'll just back up what Chief said. I was on that committee when we did the interviews last fall, and Mr. Anton, very well qualified, and I think will be a great addition to the village of Blissfield. He's got some background in areas that, and Chief helped me out here. He's got some background in areas that I think might be very helpful. That's all I'll say.
We're gonna be in really good shape. I mean, with Corey, we brought someone who's speaks 3 languages, has a vast array of unique experience. And Tom is going to bring a whole different set of unique experiences and talent with him, especially in the area of narcotics. He's got an extensive background working in narcotics. And I don't think it's a secret to anybody that we all know there's just a ton of dope moving up down 223 between Toledo and Adrian, going out to Jackson. And that's just a constant. And I think Tom's really going to help us in detecting some more of that trafficking. And those types of stops and investigations generally the bigger fish. And so he's going to fit right in and help us, I think, fill a little bit of a gap that we had in that area of expertise. Certainly not an area of expertise that I have. My background was all homicides and traffic crashes. Tom's bringing the dope aspect of things. And God bless him. I never was a big guy on dope. I didn't really care to get into that stuff because it's a seedy mess. So God bless the guys that do it. And I think Tom's going to be a great asset to the department. So thank you.
So if there aren't any other comments or questions, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Real quickly, I think we ought to thank Matt Duchesne for his years of service to the village, and we accept his resignation with reservation. We just appreciate what he did for the village.
I would concur with that. All right, down to the officer's report as far as clerk. We're going to look at the bills. Is that what we're up to, right? The bills?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions on the bills?
Of course I have one.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Hey, Lisa, on page 26 out of 29, it's about a grant expense for the library for $866.73. Just curious, probably best to talk to Dr. Bob, I know, but I got you here. Do you know what the grant expense was for? Was that a grant expense? Did they go to a grant class, or was, do you know what that involved?
let me look it up really quick. Okay. See if I can shed some more light on it for you. I think they used grant money to purchase some items.
Okay, that's why it says grant expense then.
Yeah,
okay.
But there was a wireless access, looks like some IT products that were purchased. And I believe it was some grant money that they used, and it was expense to that.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
That's it?
Yeah, for me.
Okay. So if there aren't any other questions about the bills, I need a motion to pay the bills.
I'll move council authorize payment of the monthly bills as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to pay the bills as presented. If there aren't any other questions, you can call the roll, Lisa.
James?
Yes.
Gwen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Barb?
Yes.
Jan?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes. Bills are paid. Thank you. Attorney, your report, do you have anything? Is our attorney still here? All right. Chief, do you have anything else?
I just want to thank you for the vote. Also, thank you for the mention for Officer Duchesne. I have tried to talk Matt out of it, and he's got personal reasons for leaving the job, and I respect that. And he's been a great asset to the department. I really am going to miss having him around. So I appreciate the sentiment that was expressed. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Chief, I have a quick question for you on the report that you have for us, or that was part of our packet. It says monthly statistics for 2020 and 2021. I think these are the yearly statistics, perhaps?
Well, I've been submitting that report to the administrator since I got here every month. And what I do is I update it quarterly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that those particular statistics are the year-end statistics.
Gotcha.
But the report is titled a monthly report when I generate it out of the RMS system.
Okay.
I've just done it quarterly. We did it monthly for a while. It takes a little bit of time to format that into a memo from the RMS system. So when Jim was here, we just decided to do it quarterly instead of monthly. But certainly at any time, if anyone ever wants to see an up-to-date monthly stat, I mean, I can certainly generate the report and send a PDF out. So
yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Administrator's report.
Your Honor, I provided council with an update on the village administrator position, including a synopsis of the timeline for Mr. Walsh to complete his work. So that will give you an idea of some of the major task dates that the council should be keeping on your calendar. We have also plugged any dates that council has to take action into the iCompass system so that we've got placeholders for those items. Staff has received training on the Minton bid system, and we posted our first bid on the system, the wastewater treatment plant sludge removal and land application services. The last time I looked was this weekend, and a total of 295 companies had been notified of our bid opportunity. And 13 companies had downloaded our bid documents. So, we just posted that on March 3rd. So we will be accepting bids through, I believe, March 31st. And then we're hoping to have this on council's first agenda in April for consideration. I provided you with an update on the Rotary Club Trail project and the Aquatic Center opening preparations, including quite an extensive list of the things that we have to do to prepare the facility for staffing, operations, programming, and the facilities and grounds preparations. So we will be moving through each of these lists to continue our work to make sure we can open that facility on time. We have advertised the crossing guard positions, and the chief is working on that recruitment. Village Hall janitor position. We will be reviewing applications this week, hopefully interviewing people, and our goal is to have somebody in the position by mid-March. We anticipate that our virtual council meetings will continue through at least the end of March as allowed by state law. There are some bills pending in the state legislature that may allow for an extension of the virtual meetings. One of them that looks most promising would extend virtual meetings for no reason for an additional 3 months. And then there are other bills that look like they're probably not going to go anywhere. But I will keep council posted as I know more about how we're going to be handling council meetings and other board and commission meetings going forward. I noted for you that the U.S. House and Senate approved the federal coronavirus relief package, $1.9 trillion. $10 billion of that will be coming to the state of Michigan. $4.4 billion of that total $10 billion will be going directly to local governments, counties, villages, cities, and townships. And we don't know exactly how much the village of Blissfield will be receiving from that package, although we anticipate it will be a substantial amount of money. A number that was thrown out, and please do not write this down or take this as written in stone, but the Michigan Municipal League during our webinar meeting today indicated that a community of 5,000 is probably looking at somewhere around something close to $1 million. So it will be a substantial amount of money for each community. But as I know more on this, I will definitely pass along the information to the council. I met with Eagle last week to talk about the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project, introduce myself, connect with our partners at Eagle, and to open the lines of communication. I should say reopen the lines of communication after our transition, and to let them know that that we are moving forward diligently with the wastewater treatment plant project. I also met with our engineers and our general contractor for the project on Thursday, and our contractor, LaSalle, indicated that they will be prepared to start construction work during the week of March 29th. So that's good news for us. And I provided you with a copy of the general construction schedule that they provided me at that meeting. It looks like they anticipate starting construction the week of March 29th and completing the project in July of next year. So well within the 500 and some days that we have to complete this project under the Eagle administrative consent order. And I provided you with a list of upcoming meetings and my current project list. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Have you had any other meetings with the Coalition for Safe Water and Affordable Water?
We have not set up additional meetings yet, but that is on my radar to do.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Darwin, did Eagle happen to mention anything regarding fines or the assessment regarding the wastewater treatment plant?
They did not, and I did not feel that this first meeting was probably appropriate to bring up that discussion. I think the interest on the part of Eagle, I believe, is to see that the village is moving forward as expeditiously as possible with the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. I don't get the impression that their interest is in trying to levy fines that are going to hinder us in moving forward. So we're taking it one step at a time. The levying of fines should end when we start construction. And I specifically asked them, what does the meaning of construction, the start of construction mean? And they said it's a pretty broad definition. Basically anything that indicates physical work, whether it's a groundbreaking, whether it's doing some electrical work, what have you, they would consider that to be start of construction. So that was good news. But I'm sure as we move along and we continue to have meetings and discussions with Eagle, which I intend to have on a regular basis, we will have more discussions in that area.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Darren. We're going to move on to any unfinished business.
I would call it unfinished business. I don't know if Heather, TIF plan status / that RCC, am I saying that correctly? I'll bypass that for a minute. She might be having problems with her mic there. Darwin, do you know what the status is of the that little box, the vendor box for the bulk water, what that is, as far as that being put in?
So the bulk water vendor system.
Yes.
I don't want to answer that without checking with Nora first, and I don't know if Nora is.
I didn't see. Oh, she is here. I didn't see her. There she is. Hey, Nora.
Hi, guys. So I have all of the equipment for the vendor that we purchased. At this time, there's a few behind the scene things I'm trying to get in order before we put the box up there and tell them that it can't work.
That was kind of going through the banking system. Is that correct?
Bulk water is. I'm going to answer your question, Gwen. Are you talking about the banking system?
Yeah, wasn't there some collaboration with the bank?
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yep. Okay, I'm sorry. So I'm waiting for the merchant ID number, and then I can program the vendor. From there, I need to get internet to that building, which I have talked to Andrew that works for the DPW, and he's going to help me run the internet from the sludge building to the high service building. Then we also have, let's see, there's a few things. What else is on my checklist? Looking at getting cameras set up, since we are going to be putting credit card machines out there in the opening.
Oh, good point. Okay.
Just something that Chief and I can both access. So we want to get something like that, which we can just do through Lowe's, and Chief and I will have access to those. So there's just a few little behind the scene things that I'm trying to check off the list before we get that up and running. And we just finished some maintenance at the plant. So now that's the next thing on my checklist here to get going. So.
Well, I don't know if Darwin would have been able to answer all that to that degree.
No, I would not have.
Thank you, Nora. I appreciate the details. All right, thank you.
No problem.
All right, is there any new business?
Well, I still have some old business. Just I know it's getting late. Just a couple of things.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Darwin, have the phone issues with the library, have they been taken care of now?
To be honest with you, I'm not even aware of the phone issues at the library.
Weren't they having some issues with the connection, something like that before? Whether they were losing calls or something, I thought Dr. Bob had said.
I'm sorry, I don't know about that, but I'm more than happy to reach out to Bob and talk to him about it and see where they're at with it and provide an update.
This is Lisa. Actually, they made a couple upgrades with their internet system with some grants that they had. I don't know if that was that bill that you were questioning.
Yeah.
It was better, but I know I also was talking one day and I lost a call. So I'm not sure, but I know it was going better.
Okay, I was curious on that. All right, thank you. And then it's kind of old business yet new business. And Mike, you might remember this because I don't remember what this is called. Remember when we used to receive a report that it would say like what we're spending currently, and then it would say like what % of our budget had been used, and then if it was a plus above the budget or below the budget. Do you remember that report? And do you know what the name of that thing is?
That's the revenue and expenditure report that you're talking about.
Will we be able to see? I really like that report because it kind of detailed where we were within our budget, how close we were to spending it on target with the budget, above or below. Would we be able to get that report again?
Do you want me to include that in my treasurer's report for you?
I think so, yes, because I think that'd be helpful for all of us to know where are we within budget. Are we on, above, below, etc.
Yeah, so do you want the funds or do you want specific funds?
I don't know. Can you look to see what was done before? Was a good place to start with? Okay.
I'll do them all. It's like 40 pages long, but I'll do them all. And then you guys tell me what you want and what you don't want.
Okay, and maybe if we can see the differences, then we can make that decision. Thank you. Hey, Lisa, this question's for you. Could we get our phone numbers for council on our website?
Yeah, when we had talked about it before, you guys had decided emails, but that's fine. I'd be glad to put phone numbers on there.
Yeah, I'd like to have both on there if that's possible. I don't know. I mean, I know why. Well, I was trying to locate Jan's number for the longest time. But I think that might be an easy access for our residents as well. I mean, it's great to have our websites, but as well, or our email, but I'd kind of like to have our phone numbers on there if that's okay too.
Yeah, I can put those back on there.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is, you know how there's been so much grant talk lately? We don't have to talk about this now, but I think we have a lot of talented people within our village that are grant type writers that have had success and know how to write them, the verbiage, etc. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could see if we have any interest in grant writers and if they could assist us. I know Barb had, I don't want to say the person's name, but Barb knows a couple people that might have that niche for helping us with that grant writing. And like I said, have been successful in the past and could assist us now. And that's all I have, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to new business now. Okay. Announcements.
I just want to thank the chief for his report. I think that's great. And I think the numbers speak for themselves on how awesome our police department is. You know, they're focusing on the things that they should be, but a lot of it's done behind the scenes and the public doesn't need to know about it, you know, but the numbers speak for themselves. And chief, that hats off to you. You know, a lot of the drug issues that you spoke of earlier, showing that we're picking up, you know, more under the influence, you know, more drug deals, that sort of stuff, but also our traffic stops are actually down, which, you know, a lot of people probably don't believe, but that's, you know, the numbers are showing right here. And again, hats off to the police department. You guys do a great job.
Well, thanks. Numbers are down. A lot of that had to do with COVID. We were, and not just this department, but virtually any department I know of was taking very cautious approach to traffic enforcement, and it has resulted in reduced numbers of stops. The COVID forced a lot of people to stay home, so crashes were down across the state. However, fatal accidents were up. So we were seeing less crashes, but there were more crashes resulting in fatalities. You know, we're still staying ahead of the game here in Blissfield, and you know, my job is to monitor our enforcement versus the crimes that occur or the crashes that occur, and try to maintain that balance. And I couldn't do it without the guys I've got. They're fantastic, and they're out there every day just holding the line for us. And I can't say enough good things about them. But thank you, Mike. I appreciate the kind word.
All right. Thanks, Chief. We went to new business and announcements. Darwin, I forgot to mention what we're going to have on our committee of the whole meeting is the
programming. You were going to discuss the programming. Extension programming.
Department of Community Services. Yes.
Yes.
We were going to discuss that ordinance, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we also discuss the ordinance to amend purchasing code too, while we're at it?
Yeah, we can do that.
I mean, it doesn't have to be anything lengthy, but I got a couple questions, so.
All right, that sounds good. I know it's been a long meeting, but I also think it's been very productive. I'd like to thank everyone. And with that being said, I would like to have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All right, call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
James. James,
Hi, Sue, where are you?
muted.
Muted.
He's muted. James doesn't want to leave.
No.
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Good night.